Hey everybody, welcome to the Tattoos with Intention podcast. I'm your host Mark Nara, and on this program we are unpacking the tattoo paradigm, making room within our current tattoo perspective for tattoos as more than just marks in the skin, talking about the bigger picture and the bigger processes involved. So this is part 2 of my interview with Jon Osiris. On Instagram, his handle is Jon108 Osiris. He's based in Seattle, Washington, and he practices his method of therapeutic tattooing, which he's termed tattoo vinyasa. If you didn't catch part 1 for whatever reason, check that out. It'll give this interview more context. But basically, me and Jon spoke about 12 months ago for the first time. That was part 1. 6 months worth of time lapsed in life, and we touched back in after he sent me an email outlining a few more things in depth, made me want to engage and have another chat and understand and unpack a bit more. So we did, and this is it. So this is 6 months old as well, but it's great. Basically, we draw parallels between his tantric background and how tattooing opened that up for him. In the last episode, we talked a lot about creating change by using the will and how your tattoos are a tool to do that, how what we are bringing into our practices is very similar to what the ancestors practiced, and one day that we'll be ancestors as well. So I really hope you enjoy this second part of the interview with Jon. If you want to catch Jon, you can catch him at sacredserpent.com, tattoovinyasa.com. I already mentioned his Instagram, and I'll put all those details in the link below. So also, heading out of February and into March, just for those who are wondering about booking tattoos in with myself, I'm going to be heading up towards northern New South Wales. We are relocating up there for the next cycle of time. There will be spots to get tattooed, obviously, even though they will be limited. I've expressed this a few times that I'm tattooing a lot less these days to help really refine the process with each person, finding the people that are really turning up and meeting me where I'm at in the work that I'm doing. I'll be holding some workshops, doing some men's work as well. I've partnered up with a friend of mine, long-term client. He's very heavily tattooed as well and has really done a lot of work himself and transformed. He works in the therapeutic space as an emotional trauma specialist. So we've been working in tandem with people as well around working through different blockages, mapping their story, and really making sure they have clean and connected intentions to what they want to move into and move through and embody within their tattoos. So that's been really awesome. And that is definitely on the cards for anyone that's interested. I'll be pushing that way because I think that's really the best way to get the most out of your intentional and therapeutic tattoo process. It's a lot bigger than the actual tattoo. The tattoo is just one part of this much larger, immersive journey that you can go on with your tattoos. So yeah, be in touch if you want to hear anything about that. There will be a website update soon, and I'll probably put an update on here, another episode. And yeah, enjoy this chat with Jon, and you'll hear from me soon.
Some other sessions for 5 hours a day or something like that.
Yeah, right.
A little bit of tattooing.
Yeah.
A little bit of tattooing on the end of that with some people that were there, and then I went up country to visit my mentor, guru, in that tradition, Sri Kapilnath, and hang out at kind of like a ranch in Costa Rica for a while, and Then my lady came through and we went to the beach, and so it was a nice time. And then I came back and was able to work for about a week. And then I went and did uh, our family Sundance,
Yeah.
which was about, um, about 12, 14 days or so, almost 2 weeks.
Wow. Is it
So
is there a big like approach to the actual dance? Like how long's the dance in that ceremony, and how long's lead up and wind down?
uh, lead up is depends on this year. There were women's ceremonies going on before, so there are people out there kind of in the build up to like over a week before, 10 days before, something like that. And then there's 4 days prior to the dance of purification where kind of everybody is going to be um,
In the space.
dancing or helping with the fire, etc. We're out there um, for at least 4 days before, usually 5 days before, and then everything gets built during those 4 days. And then before the dance is 4 days, and then there's a feast day after. The tree stays up for 4 days after the end of the dance proper.
Yeah.
So depends on how long people want to hang around, but um, I had to split right straight back to tending to work because I was off for almost a full month, which is not not always the way it goes. It's usually these things are broken up a little bit more, but they all fell on years.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was super intensive.
Yeah.
Great,
Nice. Nice.
great experience, great time, good prayers, good retreat,
Yeah.
um, all that.
That's
So
good. Good. There'll be lots of
hap-
yeah, there'll be lots of ripples from that month, hey? Sounds like a lot of things took place, which is good.
yeah,
Yeah, awesome. So
digestion process usually the rest of the year.
yeah. That's cool. That's cool. No, good, man. I'm glad to hear that it's been going well. It's been what, like 6 months since we had our first chat
Yeah,
about that.
yeah. It's good to touch bases again.
Yeah. Well, thanks for making the time again to chat as well. Appreciate it. And yeah, like I
Sure.
said, I've kind of caught up in a way with a lot of the stuff that we were talking about last time, and just having the time and space to re-listen and reread some of your afterthoughts and the rest as well. It was really useful. So thanks for emailing those over to pull part of
Sure.
to pull a little part of it out to help I guess show where my mind was at during it. Is like you said, your process can be stripped of the cultural nomenclature and just looked at as, you know, as the practice, and ultimately that packaging isn't the important thing. You know, that's just your artistic expression of what you've learnt, you know. And I fully get that. And I guess before we get into the chat more deeply, I just wanted to say that, you know, like an apology on my part for any abrasiveness you may have felt while my mind was, you know, turning its cogs over and working out the place you were coming from with it. But I'm on the same page, and yeah, I'm just super keen to ask some more questions and see where it's all at. So
Cheers.
yeah, all good,
Um,
man.
I think part of it too is just there's some every client, everyone who's getting tattooed or coming to you for something of that deeper level experience of intentionality or spirit or however they relate to it is another overlay anyway. You know? So it's like, well, here's a thing that you can do if you connect with this type of practice here, but this is a practice within a practice, so to speak. So like it's a way to draw further, bind closer together, uh, those those practices, those ideas, and so on.
Yeah.
For whoever it may be, because some
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
of course, aren't going to come in with that type of relationship or that type of practice.
Yeah.
You may not have no background at all.
Yeah. 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 And I think that's one of our similarities, man, is people can come in for a session and it's you just draw on the frameworks you have for those people that I guess are open to it or can follow you down that path. And if you are connecting over it, you can go so much deeper. But it's not essential, right? It's one of those things that it's awesome when people have access to it. But you just finding a new comfy spot. Are you at work, bro?
Say that again.
Are you at work?
Oh yeah, I'm at the office. My
Yeah.
partner just walked.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I dipped into the more chill room here.
Yeah. Cool. Very good. Very good. So yeah, you've been doing a fair bit of travel since we spoke last, including presenting your 1-day workshop. I've seen you put that up a few times on Tattoo Vinyasa.
Yeah.
And so that
that
is that aimed
Go ahead.
more specifically at people receiving tattoos?
It can kind of be for any spectrum. Certainly feel like it goes well if someone, there's some people that are interested in being tattooed, because that was sort of the the background idea about taking this thing around so that of course, like, I could connect with people on a more direct level in the frame of tattooing, as it were. But it was for anybody, and it was well received in a few places around the states here, and my home studio was, I just had basically friends and people that I tattooed, or another tattooer colleague, and so it was real nice, easy kind of stepping off that cliff. It made it very nice.
Yeah.
Because I had people, familiar faces to smiling back at me. It was very nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that the first time you've done those workshops?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Definitely first time. And with the first, I was like my first go at the thing. So of course, like, it took taking the last, what was it? 4-5 months, just like kind of studying and chewing on it, thinking about it as I continue to, like, compile this book and figure out how to move that forward, how to move all these little pieces forward in a good way. So it's,
you can't rush it. You can't rush it.
Rethinking things. Yeah. Taking time to feel it.
Yeah. Even like you said, our first chat made you like almost straight away made you see some different ways of presenting the material as well.
For sure.
Yeah. Which is super good.
Helpful in that way. You said liver.
Yeah, that's it.
So thanks for that.
No, all good. The first talk I did around the process that I have was a similar thing. It was just a whole bunch of smiley faces. I was at this like social change event that was over a few days, and I was talking about tattooing, and it was, it felt good. Everyone's sort of smiling and looking back at you and understanding. And I was like, that's the testing ground, it's us dipping our toes in and seeing that it can be received well, even if it's not going to be, the majority all the time. That's okay too, though, right? But yeah,
Right.
it's that thing where it takes like a back end and forward movement of like going into and presenting and stepping back and reflecting, especially with the writing. I've been compiling some writing as well, which is, I'm really keen to talk to you about what you've been putting down, because I've sort of got to points a number of times over the past few years where I'm like, oh, should I put it out? And for whatever reason, it sort of doesn't come about. And then 6 months later, I look and I'm like, oh, thank goodness it didn't, because now, I can see it from this angle, or I can add that. And I'm sure that could go on forever, so there's probably a point where like both of us just need to push the button on it and get it out. But what's your writings and artwork looking like for your book,
Well, it's I totally relate to what you're saying there, because yeah, you could go back and put in the this twist or that twist or this idea or whatever. But I'm certainly happy for the time that I've taken. Felt important to do so, but it's like some of it too is how hard do you want to push a certain thing, and so I've really come back and forth with the thing with saying, okay, well, it really should, the focus should be like, I feel like something more to look at, and then a little bit of the philosophy, a little bit of the thing. But I think I'm trying to integrate it slowly with some projects. So I'm taking some clients' projects and breaking them. There'll be a little bit of a breakdown as far as like the process.
Yeah.
Going through that process, some photos that relate to
like
that.
documenting someone's journey through
So maybe
Vinyasa.
a couple of case study like journeys with people.
Yeah.
And then, and then some other body of work as far as like painting, metal craft. I don't know if metal craft needs to be involved. I think that's a whole nother book, but certainly the visual art, tattooing and art related to tattooing, because that's what the whole function of this like magical thing that we're involved with is about.
Yeah.
So,
I think that idea of, the other modalities coming in, like your jewelry and stuff, as much as the same philosophies could overlay them, getting like, the tattooing sort of as one theme and one practice, solo and separate to it, probably be a good move. I've thought similar things. I'm like, oh, but my tattooing could also be like this, this type of magic, and I could put this type of thing in here as well. And then I was like, it will probably, dilute the actual power of the tattoo practice if I started to put the other things in,
Right.
Yeah. And I guess for like, as reference for other tattooers, having a book where it's like just more specifically just the tattooing stuff is probably a good move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think so. Like, I think a lot of us creative type folks have, it's easy for us to continue to extrapolate. So reining it in and saying, no, less is more in this case. And like doing that is a good practice, at least for me. So
yeah, completely.
All right, let's slow down. Let's simplify it, and then have something really focused to look at there. So.
And so does the writing relate to the 7 phases of the dermal darshan that we were talking about? You were saying that there's those 7 concepts or stages that you go through in your practice with each person. Is the information you're putting in the book in relation to that as well, or is it more an introduction to it and then you go through that later?
Well, definitely saving that for a little bit further or toward the middle section of the book itself, just in terms of because I don't want to lambaste people with esoteric concepts right out of the gate. I want to actually kind of got to like ease past it a few times. Like if how I like pick up a book and look at it, if it's an art book or so even a magazine or something, it's like, man, I flip through the pictures a few times first before I actually read it. So um, I would imagine that some of it's going to be a little bit like that in terms of the
Yeah, yeah, cool.
relationship with this. Like, you could have it sitting on the counter or whatever, and like, oh, it's a conversation piece, and it's like you can look at for a few minutes, or you can like sit down and give it 2 hours and really like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
get something else out of it. So,
Yeah, awesome. That's cool. That's cool. Um, do you have any diagrammatical artworks in there? You know, are you going to have
oh
any?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Um, is it relation to specific symbols that you're going to be using within it, or is it more placements? Because one of the things I've been playing with in drawings is that idea of like mapping the body and where things go and those kind of lines and channels and pathways on the body. That's one of the things I was just keen to see, sort of how you dictate placement with people and what that process is like during that drawing on phase, you know?
Yeah, that's an important one, and it's so different for everyone. Um, I mean, there's some general guidelines I use, and definitely like discuss a little bit of that, and then some of it become more about the person themselves, uh, and how they're relating to it too. Because I recently had been working with this gal who, like, near this, the outer part of her leg, like to the midline, is like 7 different mandala symbols, and they're all for
Yeah.
different direction and different focus and all this.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, and her concepts were different as far as cosmology um, than I'd ever seen placed in anything I've ever looked at in many ways. But it was very coherent, and I liked it. I thought she had a great idea, a great plan, and so just went with her on that, and did it to the best of my ability as far as how the concepts were connected and what she was trying to do with it. So
Yeah, yeah.
uh, I'm totally, you know, the more feedback I get from whoever I'm working with, um, it feeds that process. And sometimes I'm able to be like, oh, we'll consider this. And that becomes like where they shifted some of their thinking
Yeah, yeah,
to go,
totally, totally.
my experience, but my experience isn't always the thing that.
Do you see some like overarching layouts and composition though? Like, I mean, generally, you know, your suit's confined to your body, right? So like, there's that full body suit, like you have yourself, and you know, then you see certain like templates that have sort of presented and come out over the course of history in different cultures, and now we're like, you know, you can have whatever you want and do whatever you want. But do you see any like cohesiveness in your own work amongst all these different people, regardless of maybe where they start to get tattooed in their journey and then where it ends up over time, or correlation between particular parts of the body and particular experiences, maybe?
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely the latter. There's certainly some areas on the body that seem to bring up similar things, to be processing at
Yeah,
different
yeah, yeah.
or similar levels, where people are going into themselves. So that's a definite yes, and
Cool.
and
That's
I,
good.
I see a lot of congruences, um, and of course the latter, a lot of my layout and design as far as on the body seems to be informed by a lot of, well, largely Japanese tattooing, because they've done it so well, so much,
Yeah, yeah.
and also a lot of old lots of different cultures of tribalism,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah. I
Because you're
definitely,
viewing the body more as a whole instead of like piecemeal, like badge of honor type thing, which is certainly I don't see anything wrong with that,
yeah,
but it's more of like, oh well, I feel it at this place, and so it goes
yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah. I think if you have that zoomed out perspective of like eventually it's going to be a suit, like we touched on this last time, where we were saying, you know, the Japanese philosophy of one body, one drawing is kind of one of the nicest aesthetic um, ways to approach getting tattooed because the whole thing flows. But
Mhm.
then with that, you know, the badge of honor idea, like you're saying, it's almost usually connected to a place and a particular point in time where that spot feels right. But when you have the approach that it's eventually going to be a suit, this is what I do anyway. Like someone will come in and they might say, hey, you know, I want this piece here on my shoulder or my forearm or my chest. And instantly I'm thinking about the other shoulder, the other forearm or the other chest so that eventually it'll balance up. Like they're going to, you know, get the unintentional bodysuit quite
Right,
potentially in, you know, 10, 20 years anyway. And so like
right,
when those particular pieces unfold over time, even if they haven't explored the possibility of going that far with their tattooing, that's when I start to see that overarching layout that I'm sort of talking to at the moment come through, you know. And I've been trying to chat with a couple of different artists about this. That's why I was so keen to see if you've seen a similar thing coming through in your work, where it's, you know, even you look at the Polynesian um, pieces because they did have quite specific meanings or like pathways to getting their tattoos done. And it's different time and place, but there's a lot of the information attached to those parts of the body or those times in their lives of getting tattooed, and it can overlay what people are tuning into now, you know.
hmm yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I get
you're.
lots of people getting that, you know, that spot where the Borneo rosettes sit, kind of between the
Mhm.
chest and the shoulder. Like heaps of people getting drawn to like those points, right? Even if it's different imagery.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting too, like how I mean, you can definitely see certain awareness or trends developing around certain spots, like 20 years 20 years ago, it was like for a woman, it was like, oh, the low back, or something like that. And then it became the ribs or the sternum or whatever. And so, there's that happens, I think, along with the
Yeah.
modern communication that we all share and are using and so on. But like going back deeper, I think definitely there was a lot to do with um, how your I don't know how your it was coming through, like it was coming through and stuff, or some relationship with your body or with some kind of experience that you wanted to have or that you want to over, you know. So it's curious.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's always to learn from people that way.
Yeah, completely. And I've been really like trying my best to sort of read the tattoos, you know, and write that story, like so that each piece kind of has relationship to the next, you know, not just on that aesthetic level, you know, not just from wanting the whole suit to look good, but you know, for all of the different markers in the time to make sense with each other and grow, you know. And
Mhm.
yeah, it like you can't expect the people coming in to get tattooed to have that perspective yet, you know. We're kind of having to walk people through that, you know. But I think like definitely
For sure.
by the time we're sort of coming to an end with our own practices, hopefully there'll be a whole bunch of people on the receiving end that understand it coming into the process of getting tattooed. because of their relationships with someone who's maybe walked through it prior, right?
Mm-hmm. Certainly.
Yeah,
Certainly.
yeah. That's why I like. I think it's so good what you're doing yourself, and um, yeah, it kind of keeps me inspired too, seeing other people doing it in their own way. That's really cool.
Oh, certainly, man. It's that's what prompted me to reach out in the first place. Just because it's like, oh yeah, you're, he's on the same wavelength as far as that goes, and it just made sense. And
Yeah, maybe just a little bit earlier on than yourself. That's all. Which is cool. It's good. It's good. I enjoy the being humbled in that way, which is nice. But man, one of the things that I've been looking at a lot since we chatted last, I mentioned it a couple of times in some of our messages back and forth, but one of my main mentors passed late last year, and he was a Navajo man, Diné elder that was living in Australia, and I learnt the 7 sacred laws of his wheel, which was a Navajo base, but very specific to Australians and living here as well. He had this different place and with different people, so there was a different spin on it, but had that very traditional framework, and he would do all of the traditional ceremony with us, which was awesome. And when you sent your follow-up email and you mentioned that there was no coincidence in the 7 phases of your dermal darshan overlapping with the 7 sacred laws of the Lakota way, I found that real fascinating, because I've just been really digging into it. Since his passing, I've just as you do, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have access to this amazing person anymore. So I've just been rereading all of our notes from vision journals, and reading everyone else's journals in the hoop, and just trying to really get my head around and consume all of that information while it's while his energy is still fresh. And I just found it super interesting, the 7 laws that you sent through. I think every region and every hoop has a different wheel. Is that right? Do you know if that's right? It's based on the same framework and geometry, but the actual laws are different depending on who they are and where they are. And
yeah, there is some variance that I've seen, and it seems to be related to who the originator of that particular Tioshbae or the hoop, um, etc. I mean, there's an overarching from whence it came, from the tradition that people learn from, but slightly different interpretations because of language or because of location or understanding. And it's it's all human beings, and it's all oral tradition and everything. So there's there's definitely some variance.
yeah.
Everybody in ceremony too. I think if you're around it, if you take take part in it, you start to realize that everybody has different teachings and different medicine, so to speak, and so a lot of that just comes from being around and doing the thing, and everybody's got a little bit different feeling about what they feel is the important thing about that, or what that actually does for them, or their experience. It's completely informed by their experience, and so I think that's why it's important to be go gently ahead in most cases, because you don't have any idea what someone else's awareness is about it.
Yeah.
So
completely. And
I've been,
there you go.
I was just gonna say, I've been blessed to be around people that do have that way about them, that occasionally there's something that somebody pops off about something, but for the most part, people then entirely respectful and respectful of maybe the things that they don't know about the person, or about what they're saying, if it's not in context. So
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, keeps you on your toes.
yeah, completely. I mean, and I mean, that's the beautiful part of it, you know, that constant learning and echoing of different things and having to just like check in and see where things sit, you know. But yeah, I've just been really enjoying discovering all of these different overlays and taking the time and trying to see how they settle into what it is that I'm doing. You know, it's it's funny. You find like the more you sort of hold to one thing, which is really important, especially initially, right? To just know something really thoroughly. Um, the more you see how important it is to like to have and to formulate your own cosmology within all of these, you know, like completely respectful of them and to have them there to sort of guide you and to be the, you know, the fathers and the mother of what you're doing, right? But it's super important to pioneer your own thoughts around it too. I think especially because of you know, how far from those times we are now, you know, like as each century goes on, we're further and further away from what they were specifically defined by like language and writing and these things that are carrying them through time, right? You know, so they're always going to have those little changes and nuances as we go.
Yeah, and it's important for it to do so to adapt to the time that is now.
Yeah, yeah,
Not forget, not go to sleep on tradition and where the stuff comes from because that's what made it the way it is. But if we're going to carry it forward, then yeah, things have to evolve continually. And I think creative people are the front line, the front runners of that, as has been said by many people, um, artists and non-artists alike. But um, yeah, it's keep on rolling with the eternal present and paying attention. I think we'll get, you know,
yes,
not. I don't think we'll end up off base. We're continually checking in about it.
yeah.
So
But there, you know, there's so many attempts to distract us, right? Yeah, so that's the thing. That I think it's almost harder to be present these days too. We probably need it more than ever,
yes,
which is great that it's we're finding ways to bring it into these cultures that are becoming so mainstream, like tattooing, and you know, even things like the yoga is becoming mainstream now, which is nice to see, right? Yeah,
yeah, and it's interesting too. Like there's things that are done well, and there's things that are not done well, and so you know you have a full spectrum
yeah, yeah,
uh spirit. You can just check it out. You can cursory sort of look at something. You can see the whole gamut of stuff.
yeah,
Ju-
yeah,
Sometimes too many choices aren't good, uh, but when there's, you know, you gotta sift through a lot of stuff. Sometimes it makes that whatever that you found at the bottom that was the gold nugget makes it really so precious.
yeah,
So
yeah. You're always going to have the the no thrills, cheap, easy access version on the top there. It's always going to be there, which is fine too. Like you said, it's the dig is part of it sometimes. Um, you mentioned that you were having some thoughts on a possible gathering down the line in the future.
yeah, uh got some friends who do I've been involved with a couple of them. It's called they call it the full circle gathering.
Mm-hmm.
Um and it doesn't necessarily have to dovetail into that, but a couple of the homies and colleagues, one's my friend Philip Millick in the Bay Area in Oakland,
Oh yeah, I think I've seen his work
that
recently.
old crow tattoo,
Yeah, yeah.
and one is Nathan Mould in Pittsburgh. Right. So those two guys, I've discussed a few things. It sounds like there's maybe interest in doing something a little bit um, similar, or I don't know if it's goes along with full circle, but it's another thing and another different venue and potentially in Costa Rica. So it could be an international thing as far as it goes with people, some of the other artists. The place can't hold a ton of people, so it'd have to be kind of like maybe one or two clients per artist, and
Mm-hmm.
you've got a really focused, got a week or two, probably a week max, I would say, because the last full circle ran about 4 days. But yeah,
Yeah, so
just
like
we're
opening up a
starting.
space where it's like there's more happening than just the tattooing, but there's a bunch of people on the same page doing that with some clients. Is that the idea?
Yeah, yeah. So people have a chance to work, but we can also kind of have a free exchange of ideas, like maybe a
Yeah.
little bit of discussion time each day where somebody wants to like maybe present something or talk about an idea or something. And we can work, decide if it's okay, well, cool, let's apply this thing
Yeah.
while we work with, you know, consider, or maybe we give the floor to a client and say, hey, like what are you getting into here?
Yeah, I think that's a great
I don't
idea.
know, just starting to talk about
Yeah.
possibilities, and this thing can look a lot of different ways. So um, I wanted to get some feedback, like from potential feedback from yourself, even about it,
Yeah.
just to see what the possibilities might be.
Yeah, cool, cool. Well, I mean, I've definitely been paralleling that thought with you probably since we spoke last. I think we mentioned it when we were wrapping up last time, but I didn't record it. And I went to that Indigenous tattoo conference in Auckland in New Zealand a few years back.
Mm,
Did I mention that?
how was that?
Well, it was really cool, man. I wasn't working. I was just going along because I wanted to see some of the artists working and have a chat. And when I flew in, I ended up staying with a friend, and he had some other artists staying with him as well. And so, the night before the convention, we got chatting, and they said, "Look, come along with us." The convention was 3 days. The first day was just for artists, and they were in the marae, and it was just a day of each artist, or an artist from each region getting up and presenting to the other artists. It wasn't an open public space, and so I was super lucky. I got to like sit in, which was great, because I'm an artist. I got so much out of it, but I'm sitting in there just listening to like Keone from Hawaii, and someone from Samoa and Greenland, and everyone was talking, having their bit. And there was only say 30 people in the room, and it was really intimate and deep, and super informative. And there was good dialogue between all the artists, because there was the time and space for that before the tattooing took
Cool,
place. And then when the tattooing
cool,
took place, it was cool, man. You had like people from one place stretching for people from another, and it worked really well. And like
awesome. Yeah,
since then I've thought
sounds
that's such a good way to do it. Have time before, have some tattooing, have some time after, and everyone can really just open up and yeah, cross pollinate ideas and look at it from that place.
mhm.
Yeah, so
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
I'm definitely
You
keen.
know, that makes sense as far as like some of the things that I've discussed about get-togethers, gatherings, conventions, whatever you want to call them. Like the typical convention now is like, uh, oh man, it's just such an overload of sense sensory perception. Like, yeah, the noise, all the visual, like all the stuff like we're taking in visually, and all the people, and there's some of them are so big, and even the little ones are modeled after the big ones in most cases.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so I think getting back to what they used to be, which was for the artists, there was a trade show for tattooers. The national conventions weren't, they didn't start out allowing people to get tattooed there.
yeah.
It was mostly tattooers coming in and vibing and talking about their stuff. So I totally get down with that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
The current conventions are just a blowout of everything that, is almost non-essential to what we're talking about, the actual the outcome of the tattoo experience for the person too. So that's good. That's good. I'm glad that that's in the pipeline. Keep me updated with what your moves are with it,
For sure.
and I'll do vice versa,
For
because
sure.
I'd like to do something over this way too. I've been surprised.
Yeah.
There's been a few Australian artists that are, starting to pay a little bit more attention to it. And I think we lag in that department. Definitely, there's more happening over in the States and in Europe and whatnot. So, yeah, be good to see how it unfolds.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, we'll keep in touch on it.
Yeah, good. The other artist you mentioned, one was at Old Crow PM Tattoo. Is that who you were relating to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine.
Oh, cool. I only just came across his work recently. Maybe a few days ago. Beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
And so he has a similar approach to his work as well.
I mean, it's definitely his own. He's definitely works deeply with in terms of tattooing and with his customers. So he's good people, and has his practices for sure. He's like he's been through a lot of changes, so he's done things that maybe pathways that he's tread before have totally evolved into something else.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's got a beautiful body of work and a style, and he's a genuine person and
yeah, cool
dude. So
cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm keen to get in touch with some more people. Kind of, as much as we've got this internet connection, it's the physical proximity does wonders. So it'd be nice to get over and share space with a bunch of other like-minded tattooists. But man, let's talk about your jewelry a little bit, because you brought it up before, and I've seen recently the pieces you've been working on and putting up. What is that instrument that you keep using? It's obviously a tantric tool, the trident piece.
Yeah, the Trishul.
Yeah, do you want to speak to that a little bit, even just so I can understand it a bit?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So the Trishul, or it's the weapon of Lord Shiva, who's the Lord of Yoga, and it's a 3-pronged spear, which is, of course, in the West we would call it a trident. And there are many different triads that you can ascribe symbolically to the thing, and you can also, at least operatively, use it. It's a symbol for the yoga itself. So the 3 prongs symbolize in the human body the Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna Nadi, which is the right solar, lunar, and central channel of the central nervous system, the spine.
Yep.
And then the subtle systems that emanate the left and right nostril. So there's a bit of an esoteric relationship symbolically with that. It can also symbolize will, knowledge, and action, which are the 3 things that to do anything. If you're going to do some symbolic act or some spiritual practice, those are good things to employ.
Essential things.
Usually bring success.
Yeah. Yeah, cool.
So as an operative symbol in on an altar, I made these smaller pieces, another run of them this past year. Finished them over the just before the new year, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And you're doing it all by hand, right? So this is like you're handcrafting precious metals.
Yes.
Cool. How'd
Then
you learn all of
these are
that?
that was a funny story because I was interested in tattooing at a pretty young age, and didn't really happen for me till later when I met my mentor Colin.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, um, or before that, it even like I was working construction when I first started getting this bodysuit, and then because I was exhausted by the construction and I wanted to continue to train, do some martial arts and so on, um, I was like looking for a different kind of job, and after some, fishing around a bit, I had a friend offer me a job at a jewelry company doing part-time polishing. So I started as part-time polisher, figured that out pretty quick, and was sort of adaptable, and people were showing me things, and then I ended up in a paid apprenticeship. So I've been a goldsmith or a jeweler, call it, for I don't know, like like 20 years almost.
Yeah, wow.
Um,
Cool. That's handy,
so
man.
so at this point, like doing more custom type of work or stuff that like I'll do a wedding set, or I'll do a bracelet or a belt buckle every now and then or something, but more lately been just making time to make like ceremonial objects and things like that.
Yeah.
That's a little bit more involved, with astrological timings and things like this. So um, there's it's a certain niche of of work that people keep asking me to do wise, and so some of my off time I'm able to make some other things
All
that
right.
have been on my mind.
Yeah. But you've been doing some ritual objects based around astrological timing to sort of harvest that energy.
Correct.
Yeah, cool, cool. My partner's really into astrology. That's her main area of study. So I'm slowly picking up dribs and drabs, and seeing the importance of it. It's a deep, deep wormhole, isn't it?
Cool thing with can line up these different layers and lenses and things, and and really can feel and see in the work that yeah, this was a this is good. It's a good thing, a good way to bring it off. So
Yeah, yeah. I've been
yeah,
thinking
cool.
about that a lot with even with tattooing, when how last time we were talking about the bindu and the central points of the tattoo, really sort of finishing pieces off and locking people's intentions in, or marking the end of cycles or whatever, those energy centers. And I'd like to be able to incorporate more astrological timing with that too, like potentially having someone's chart read, and there might just be a time that it's like you don't want to do it, or maybe amplify a particularly potent time for them too. So that's another
Mhm.
little section I want to dig into. And also had the thought of like creating ink around astrological events. That could be also a nice thing to do, create a particular batch of ink with some timing. But yeah, I guess the avenues are endless, right? With with
No, totally.
how intentional you want to get with it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I used to make needles that way a little bit,
Ah, cool.
and have certain intentions around that, and certain observant, and yeah, you can go pretty far depending on how much, because sometimes there can be a considerable amount of time put into just discerning a certain timing for a thing. I mean, you could do it in a more relaxed fashion, or depending on your ability or the people that you have access to, you can go quite deep with just looking at that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like there's a lot of it really just depends on what seems important to do, I think, or what phase you're in, because so much of astrology is like phases and associations where you're sort of like we're in the word for planet in Sanskrit is graha, and graha is a grasper. It's the thing that's holding you, and so these planetary rays or this cosmic light that's bouncing off of these planets, and then like sort of we're soaking in all the time, then seems to have a recognizable effect of some kind. So it's
Yeah, totally, man.
pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, I've been really aware of it this past month. We're like in I don't know what the difference is between where we are with the astrology, but like where I am now, we're coming to the end of the eclipse season, and we got Saturn and Pluto conjunct at the moment, and Pluto's like the wrecking ball. They say, from what I've been learning this month, it's just been so crazy. I've been trying to read up and listen to as much as I can to understand what I'm feeling at the moment. They say like Pluto's the wrecking ball energy, and Saturn's like trying to hold form and make form. So like everything you're trying to do is just getting shattered by these planets being sort of on top of each other at the moment. And it's made so much sense.
Very strong.
Yeah. I've just been like, wow, cool. Just, the more you put your attention on it, the more you start to see the impacts as well, right? And be aware of it. So yeah, the astrology's been a good dive specifically around, the tattooing, which is great. But
Cool.
yeah, man. Yeah.
All sorts of interesting lenses.
Yeah, completely. Have you taken many artists through your pathway of the tattoo vinyasa? That's the other thing I wanted to ask. Because when I go on the Sacred Serpent page, you're saying, that there's you have a core group of you, or is that something you're working towards, having some other artists that have a full comprehension of what you're doing with people?
More or less. I mean, some association with, other artists are in the background right now, and I'm trying to get things sort of stay ready to put some of some new work, some of the work that's not mine, into, to build a kind of a community around, just the idea of, waking up in whatever ways that we are, and expressing that artistically. So, on the merchandise end of things, where I've been, working on related to that more than, say, the tattooing per se.
Yeah. So more just getting people to be putting their stuff out in the same space, even though it comes from different angles.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not just my viewpoint or my expression of whatever it is, So I just know so many talented people, It's like, well, shit, you should do something.
Yeah,
So,
totally. Oh, that's good.
Love to put it out with, with your flavor on that. So, trying to continue to build out a little bit at a time. It's all just shuffling ahead with all this stuff, because there's so many irons to like tend to at this point, where you're like, okay, yeah, cool. Well, this giving it this attention over here for a month or 3, and now I need to shift gears here, working all the time.
There's, and you sort of have a whole bunch of different timelines going at the same time, right? You just got your normal everyday linear time thing happening. But I guess in a lot of these spaces or practices that you're working, kind of you can step into them and like you said, give it a big push or give it some energy, and when you step out and you come back to it again, it's time hasn't really passed. Do you find that?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a time warp factor to it.
Yeah.
It's, um, yeah, you can go deep on something and then find that, wow, you know, there was really like time dilated there, and it's almost like you weren't even gone or
Yeah.
something.
Is there
You
any
know, as far as like
terminology for
what
that in the tantric background for where time changes? I know in the Greek, um, only recently I was reading that they have like there's chronos, you know, like normal chronological time. Then there's kairos, and they say that's like the sacred time. You know, you sort of can't put on a clock, and that's when particular things happen or come through. You know.
exactly. No, I think the Greeks did. I'm sure there's a word in Sanskrit for it. Isn't coming to me right now,
Yeah.
um, but I do resonate with it. We always just call it time dilation
Time
or
dilation. Yeah.
you know, if I was looking because my mentor was saying like he told me to he did this experiment with two electrical inverters that were held in the hands,
Yeah.
and then he wired this thing. He's like, "Oh, this is an example of Kundalini energy." So he wired this thing into a circuit, and then brought the lead ends past each other, just hanging off into space, and you hold these two objects firmly in your hand. You can kind of like if you have the awareness to it, like you can feel this field created that's a little bit stronger than if you do it just without these things. I
Hmm.
mean, certainly I like had an awareness of it before, but this made it a lot more obvious because you were like focused on this equipment. But um, part of the research that I was doing with that, I found an interesting thing with, I don't believe it was Faraday. It was a scientist who was doing a experiment
Yeah.
with electromagnetic fields,
Yeah.
and basically, excuse me,
You're right.
the the theory was that if you created this field, then there was some alteration of the experience of time, and they called it the theory of special relativity. So I was like, well, that's interesting that some scientists in the early 19 or 18, I don't remember, 1900s figured this out, or noticed that there was like a little ripple
Yeah.
around it.
Yeah. Super interesting.
So
This science, man, the science is a interesting one too at the moment. It's like how, you know, it seems to be such a good converter of people's minds to look at something outside of what's, you know, normal if you can get the science behind it, right? And the real
mm,
science heads usually will, you know, start calling it pseudoscience anyway. But trying to find some scientific link always seems really helpful. Yeah, I've been wondering. I'm like, I wonder what science will be able to get behind some of this, the tattooing, you know, to show that this intentional approach is definitely having a tangible effect on the person, you know. And I've been like, oh, is it whether we sort
yeah,
of, yeah, how do we approach that, you know?
definitely. Well, you know, I've talked to because I had a one of my teachers. He's in the Apache tradition.
Hmm.
Um, was he had access to some people uh, who they were doing some like all sorts of experiments with um, mind states, different brainwave patterns, and
Yeah.
things like this. And
Yeah.
so he looked at his philosophy and saw like where these phases were. So like he talked about them was like alpha, beta, theta, delta, etc. And so I started thinking about asking myself these questions as well, like
Mm-hmm.
a number of years ago, and was like, yeah, I'd really like to like hook some clients up to like some equipment at some point during a session or during a few sessions, and like get like a baseline
Yeah,
reading
totally.
about where
Totally.
they're, because why not? You know, it's like we what are what else are we going to do with this equipment? So I think, um, and I recently, it's a good reminder because recently I met somebody who reminded me of that and was like, okay, like, yeah, I should like check
Yeah.
back on this
Yeah. I
idea.
think just putting like our thoughts back to it and attention, it'll pop up. One of us will probably tattoo someone or whatever, and they'll have the equipment or know the process. But I think it'd be a cool thing to have, even as just like a little report study thing there or case study that we can refer to and be like, see, there you go. It links in with your science stuff too. I was thinking about more looking at the ink, or trying to pick up a particular reading, an energy reading on a point that you tattoo before or after, or like Masaru Emoto with the water experiments, how he does that, perceiving water with a particular intention and it changes the structure when they're freezing it. I was like, oh, maybe we can somehow get some photos and see what ink's picking up in different environments before it's getting stored in the skin, or, all of those things. I was like, there's potential there too. But I guess all in time, man, it seems to be that there's enough people thinking about it that things are unfolding in due course now, which is good, which is really good. But yeah, man, that's the end of what I have down for this chat anyway. But I'll do the same thing as last time. I won't hold you up any longer. I'll just sit and reflect and have a think, and we'll chat again. Hey,
Good, yeah,
sound
great.
good?
Thanks.
Cool.
Good to talk to you again, Mark. And your work's been looking great. I've been enjoying seeing that on the gram, and
Oh, thanks, man.
just good to reconnect.
Yeah, totally. So. And so like I haven't put our first chat up, so because I've just been so busy, we've moved states, and our baby's literally due any day now, and all of these things. But I'm not doing any tattooing from when the bub arrives, probably for a few months. It's just chill time. So I'm thinking I'll probably put these two chats up back to back as like, part 1, part 2, put the intro in that you emailed me and whatnot. And I'll just put it all on a Dropbox for you to have a listen to anyway. It'd be cool to see how they read into each other 6 months apart. That'll be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Curious.
Yeah, it will be. It'll be good. But yeah, man, anyway, I appreciate the time. I know you got stuff to do this Arvo, so I'll let you go, and be well, and we'll chat soon. Let me know of any updates on the gathering front. I'll do the same, and we'll go from there.
Very good.
Cool.
Well, awesome. And all blessings and good vibes with your family, and new edition coming soon.
Yeah.
Glad you're able to take time off for that and be present. So
yeah, thanks, man.
Be well, and we'll talk soon, buddy.
Awesome. All right, see you, John. Catch up.